here we are. All that walking made me sleepy.
The moment The Simpsons aired their parody, Snowwoke, the Reimagining, the internet didn't just light up, it detonated. Viewers across every platform instantly knew who the satire was aimed at.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button.
A wide-eyed cartoon princess with dark hair, a mile-long monologue about independence, zero interest in romance, and a film so disastrous even Disney couldn't spin it. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't kind. And according to those close to the situation, Rachel Zegler was livid. Sources say she was blindsided.
When I get married, I'm keeping my own name. That should probably be if I choose to get married.
Completely unaware the episode even existed until fans began tagging her in clips. The moment she saw it, insiders claim she hit the panic button. Her team was reportedly told to make urgent calls to Fox, to Disney, even to the Simpsons producers themselves.
Because this is a movie that was made in 1937 and is being remade in 2024, and you sit here moaning about the differences between those two movies like 1937 were the glory days.
The request? Pull the episode. Or at the very least, yank out the character that was clearly a cartoon version of her. The answer? A swift, unapologetic no. The episode's locked. It aired. It's satire. One Fox insider allegedly said, "We're not pulling anything." And that was just the beginning. TikTok users wasted no time, turning the parody into viral content gold. Side-by-side edits showed the animated princess echoing Rachel's real-life quotes. It's no longer 1937, mashed against scenes of Krusty the Clown spiraling on a fake press tour. The prince is a stalker.
I can also be having the greatest time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending me death threats.
Cut next to the cartoon character giving a lecture on toxic tropes, while a squirrel nodded in horror. The absurdity made it even sharper, because satire doesn't need to lie, it just needs to reflect. And what The Simpsons reflected was brutal. Rachel didn't respond. No posts, no press, no comment. But that silence only made things louder. Because when one of the most iconic comedy institutions on television decides to roast your public persona and you vanish, the narrative writes itself.
She's not going to be safe with the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love.
And The Simpsons, they didn't just mock a moment, they marked a shift. And the worst part for Rachel? This time it wasn't just internet critics or YouTubers calling her out. It was Hollywood's cartoon mirror saying what everyone else had been whispering for months. To really understand why The Simpsons went for the jugular, you have to rewind. This wasn't some throwaway joke tossed in last minute. It was the result of nearly 2 years of cultural buildup, all tied to one name, Rachel Zegler.
HDTV on the wall. Who's the fairest one of all?
When Disney first announced her as the new face of Snow White, it should have been a fairy tale moment. A modern-day Cinderella story, fresh off her breakout in West Side Story, handpicked by Spielberg himself, and gifted one of the most iconic roles in cinematic history. The glass slipper fit, or so it seemed, but the magic didn't last long. What began as buzz quickly spiraled into backlash. And it didn't come from leaked photos or casting controversy. It came from Rachel herself. Her now infamous interviews painted the 1937 original as weird, dismissed the prince as a stalker, and proudly declared that this Snow White wasn't dreaming about love. She was dreaming about leadership.
They cannot keep making dolls like this. Something has to be done.
Lisa, ordinarily I'd say you should stand up for what you believe in, but you've been doing that an awful lot lately.
Cue the collective side-eye from fans who had grown up loving the fairy tale. Suddenly, a Disney princess was sneering at her own legacy, and people didn't take it well. What was meant to be empowering started sounding, well, kind of smug. And Rachel didn't stop there. Midway through the press tour, she dropped a bold Free Palestine tweet, smack in the middle of a tightly controlled Disney campaign. During red carpet interviews, she looked uncomfortable, even bored. Her vibe? Detached. Her tone? Defensive. And fans felt it. Big time. It was a PR mess even Disney couldn't pixie dust away. Box office numbers tanked. YouTubers gleefully recorded themselves sitting alone in empty theaters.
People have real problems and no one gives a shit if she got paid for 17 instead of 18 on her multi-million-dollar salary, which is not calculated by the hour.
The film, intended to be a cornerstone of Disney's live-action empire, flopped. And the star at the center of it, all became a magnet for every frustrated tweet about corporate feminism, reboot fatigue, and legacy destruction. So when The Simpsons sat down to write a parody, they didn't have to dig deep. They just opened Twitter. The cultural script had already been written, and Rachel Zegler was the lead character in a public drama nobody could stop watching. The Simpsons didn't just roast Rachel. They aired a full-on cultural autopsy. Snowwoke, the Reimagining, was a satire masterpiece precisely because it didn't exaggerate. It echoed. The parody princess wasn't some vague symbol. She was a beat-for-beat reflection of Zegler's Snow White persona.
I mean, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
She barges into press interviews, hijacks every question with monologues about dismantling the patriarchy, and scoffs at the idea of love like someone insulted her Wi-Fi speed. The line that dropped jaws, "I'm not here to be loved, I'm here to lead," delivered with cartoonish self-importance, but the internet didn't laugh it off. They screen recorded it, quoted it, used it as audio for side-by-side TikToks featuring Rachel's real-life interviews, and then came the press junket moment. Krusty the Clown, sweating bullets, muttering into an earpiece. Why didn't anyone tell me we cast someone with a podcast? It hit like a thunderclap. The satire didn't need to stretch, it simply repackaged public sentiment into punchlines. And that premiere scene, chef's kiss, red carpet, flashbulbs, eager reporters, and zero audience.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Theaters completely empty. One elderly man claps once, mutters, "I miss the old princess," and leaves. The message was loud and lethal. This remake, much like the public's patience, bombed. Then comes the meltdown. The parody princess storms a late-night show, berates the audience for failing to understand her genius, and trips over a stack of banned fairy tales she once declared problematic. She's not just mocked, she's dismantled. And as viewers laughed, they also nodded. Because somewhere along the way, the real Rachel Zegler stopped feeling like a Disney lead and started feeling like a walking PR disaster. Not because she wasn't talented, but because the story she told about herself felt hollow, cold, too focused on what she wasn't, not what she was. And that's what The Simpsons nailed. It wasn't about her acting. It was about her aura, that strange blend of ambition and defensiveness that left audiences asking, wait, does she even like Snow White?
Because they replaced the dwarves with CGI abominations. They are pretending like Rachel Zegler is the first of them all when she looks like Lord Farquaad in the film. Somehow Gal Gadot, who's easily one of the top 10 most attractive women on the planet, is some evil, ugly stepmother, which she is not. I don't know how she burst out laughing.
Yeah, none of it worked.
While the cartoon princess was melting down on screen, the real-life Rachel Zegler went radio silent. Not a tweet, not a post, not even a cryptic Instagram story with a blurry sunset and a vague caption like choosing peace. Just nothing. And that silence, it was louder than any apology could have been. Especially because behind the scenes, things were anything but peaceful. Insiders say Rachel lost it. Full-blown meltdown, according to one source. She allegedly demanded her team contact Fox immediately. Not to joke or joke back, but to pull the episode. Take it down, edit it, make it disappear. She didn't want to clap back. She wanted to erase the moment entirely. But Fox? Not having it. A source close to production said the request was met with a polite but firm, absolutely not. The episode was out, it was protected under satire law, and, crucially, it was killing it in ratings. They weren't about to censor a hit, especially not when, as one producer reportedly said off the record, she practically wrote the script for us. And while Rachel's public platform stayed quiet, the narrative did anything but. The internet smelled blood in the water. Fans, critics, and even fair-weather observers picked up the scent of something more brutal than usual: cultural consensus. Not the usual polarized chaos, not trolls versus defenders, just a collective, exhausted sigh that said, finally, someone said it. Because this wasn't just about one performance, it was about a pattern. The awkward interviews, the dismissive tone, the constant undercurrent of defensiveness. People weren't mad that Rachel Zegler had opinions, they were frustrated that she made the magic feel like a burden, like playing Snow White was some inconvenient gig she had to endure between soapboxes. And The Simpsons distilled all of that into one sentence: I'm not here to be loved, I'm here to lead. Whether that was parody or prophecy, didn't even matter. It felt true. That one line, I'm not here to be loved, I'm here to lead was everywhere.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be,
Oh.
and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true.
Oh my god, it's a really incredible story. You're making this girl boss story based on an important father figure. Her father tells her to be brave and strong. Don't you think that there's a, something redeeming about men in this story?
TikToks were remixing it. Twitter memes added it to fake presidential campaign posters. Even YouTube creators who had barely touched the Rachel Zegler discourse suddenly had a new toy to play with. And the worst part, it didn't feel exaggerated. It felt like The Simpsons had simply pressed record on the internet's collective impression of her and hit play. While Rachel remained in digital hiding, Hollywood was busy talking behind closed doors. And they weren't talking about scripts or songs or upcoming red carpet appearances. They were talking about damage, containment, strategy. One PR firm even started using her in media training sessions, literally presenting a slide titled, "How Not to Handle a Legacy Role." Not a good sign. Reports started surfacing that Disney was quietly pulling what was left of their Snow White promo machine, scheduled interviews, canceled, digital ad spots, scrubbed of Rachel's face. One insider said the studio had shifted to focusing almost exclusively on Gal Gadot and the visual effects. The lead actress, once front and center, was being quietly trimmed. Even the casting world was catching wind. One streaming giant, who had previously been in talks with Rachel for a YA adaptation, reportedly dropped her from the shortlist entirely. She's radioactive, an executive allegedly said. Not because of her acting skills, those were never in question, but because every project now came with a built-in risk assessment. Would hiring Rachel Zegler ignite the fans again? Would another viral soundbite derail the rollout? Would they become the next brand roasted in a yellow skin takedown?
But Snow White's the fairest I have seen. Also, there's a weather girl on Channel 9 who's...
Because at this point, that's what the Simpsons episode had become, a cultural referendum. It said the quiet part out loud. It mocked not just her tone, but her vibe. It reflected the simmering frustration fans felt with not just what was being said, but how. The lectures, the finger wagging, the idea that beloved stories from childhood needed to be corrected, not celebrated, and that's where the real sting lives. Not in the jokes, not in the animation, but in the realization that The Simpsons didn't create this storm. They just aired it. Rachel Zegler had spent months standing at the eye of a cultural whirlwind, but instead of calming the winds, she leaned into them. Whether it was doubling down on her critiques of the original Snow White or tweeting political statements in the middle of press tours, she became the story when she was supposed to be selling one. In Hollywood, that's a cardinal sin, because studios don't just hire actors, they hire narratives. They're not just investing in a performer, they're banking on the illusion that the audience wants to root for that performer. And when that illusion breaks, it's not the critics who decide what happens next, it's the comment sections, the edits, the memes, the mood. And the mood around Rachel Zegler had shifted drastically. What once felt like youthful confidence now read as arrogance. What once passed as edgy now felt exhausting. And the industry, it's been watching that shift in real time. One casting director reportedly said, "You can't put her in a romantic lead right now. People won't buy it. They think she hates fairy tales." And in the world of family-friendly IP, that's the kiss of death.
If I'm gonna stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
If I'm gonna stand in a dress all day long, we do that, women do that anyway. You know what, we walk around in dresses and we don't get paid for it. Rachel.
Even her loyal fans began tiptoeing. Reddit threads that once defended her now echoed with hesitation. "I love her voice," but became the new refrain. The internet wasn't out to cancel her, it was just tired of trying to keep explaining her. And when someone like Jennifer Lawrence could dismantle months of spin with a single, softly delivered question, where's the magic? The contrast became impossible to ignore. The harshest part, Rachel might not have meant for any of this to happen. She probably thought she was being honest, bold, empowering. But honesty, when delivered without warmth, can curdle, especially when you're stepping into a legacy built on kindness, hope, and childhood memories. The audience didn't need Rachel to agree with every line from 1937. They just needed to believe she cared about the story, that she respected what it meant to people. Instead, they got monologues. And now, they're getting silence. That silence is deafening, not just from Rachel, but from the very machine that once lifted her to stardom, Disney, once fiercely protective of its princesses, now seems to be keeping its distance. No statements in her defense, no reframing of her narrative, no late-night show appearances or featurette interviews. Just distance. Strategic, icy distance. And that's not accidental, it's calculated. Because in Hollywood, when the spotlight turns into a liability, even the biggest studios know when to quietly step away. Insiders say Disney's PR playbook for this kind of situation has shifted. They no longer rush to clean up the mess. Instead, they wait. They let the noise run its course. Let the internet vent, parody, mock. And when the dust settles, if it settles, they reassess. The idea isn't to protect the actor, it's to protect the brand. And right now, Rachel Zegler isn't seen as a brand asset. She's a branding risk, and that risk has ripple effects. Industry whispers suggest that upcoming live-action remakes are now facing new internal scrutiny, not because the concepts are flawed, but because studios are realizing that the casting persona matters just as much as the talent. Nobody wants another viral firestorm. Nobody wants their lead trending for all the wrong reasons. One streaming executive reportedly quipped, "From now on, every potential lead gets a TikTok audit before they get a table read." And just like that, Rachel's impact stretches beyond her own career. Her name becomes the example, the cautionary tale, the don't be like footnote in press briefings. It's not about talent anymore, it's about tone, message, timing. And when one of the most iconic animated characters in history is reduced to satire because of the actress portraying her, you can bet the suits are rethinking their entire approach. Meanwhile, the audience keeps watching, waiting, not for the next controversy, but for something far rarer: accountability, a moment of honesty, of humility, of connection. Because despite all the mockery, all the backlash, all the parodies, there's still a part of the audience that wants to forgive, that still wants to believe in the fairy tale. They just need a reason. So the real question isn't whether Rachel Zegler can recover, it's whether she wants to. Because recovery in Hollywood isn't a fantasy, it's a formula. Stars have bounced back from worse. Meltdowns, scandals, cancellations, the path back is always there. But here's the twist. It's not paved with more interviews or clever PR pivots. It's paved with one thing: humility. Not the performative kind. Not a vague, "I've learned so much" caption buried in a carousel of beach photos. Real humility. The kind that says, "Yeah, I got it wrong, and I hear you. That's what's missing right now." And that's what Jennifer Lawrence, whether she intended to or not, brought roaring back into the conversation. A moment of honest nostalgia. A quiet plea for something audiences didn't even realize they were aching for until she said it out loud. The magic. She didn't have to name Rachel Zegler. She didn't have to mention Snow White. The contrast spoke louder than anything else. One actress remembered why these stories mattered. The other became a symbol of why they don't feel the same anymore. And here's where it gets especially tricky. If Rachel Zegler does make a comeback, she won't just be rebranding a public image. She'll be reclaiming a legacy. Because this isn't just about her, it's about Snow White, about Disney, about how a single performance, a handful of interviews, and one brutal Simpsons parody rewrote the public perception of a character that's been part of pop culture for almost a century. That's the weight she's carrying now, whether she likes it or not. Because the truth, audiences don't want Rachel to fail. They just want her to stop talking at them and start listening to them. They don't want her to disappear. They want her to reappear with intention, with awareness, with heart. The kind that makes people root for you, not retreat from you. The kind that can silence a meme, outlast a parody, and remind people why they loved you in the first place. But right now, that heart is missing. The story feels hollow, the silence feels heavy, and until Rachel finds a way to fill that void with something real, not rehearsed, she'll stay exactly where she is. Not a villain, not a victim, but something arguably worse in this town: a missed opportunity. What's wild is that Rachel Zegler still has all the raw ingredients for a comeback. She's got talent, range, a fan base that wants to forgive her, and a story that's already halfway to redemption. The internet loves a full circle moment, and if she leaned into the parody, owned the missteps, even laughed at herself a little, she could flip the entire narrative. We've seen it before. Celebrities dragged through the digital mud who came back sharper, funnier, more grounded. All it takes is a moment of self-awareness. And right now, that's the one thing she hasn't shown. But let's be honest, she wouldn't be the first actor to get overwhelmed by the Hollywood machine. The difference is, most don't become a literal cartoon character in the process. And that's what makes this moment so unique, so heavy, so permanently inked into pop culture. She didn't just have a PR fumble, she got Simpsoned. She became canon in the world's most relentless satire machine. And once that happens, your career doesn't move forward until the audience wants it to. So now the question is, how does she earn that second chance? Because make no mistake, this isn't about one movie, or one interview, or even one parody. It's about what she represents in the eyes of the public. A disconnect between Hollywood and the people it's trying to entertain. A version of storytelling that feels curated, condescending, and somehow hollow. When people reacted to Snowwoke, the Reimagining, they weren't just mocking Rachel. They were mourning what they feel has been lost. Charm, sincerity, characters they could believe in, and actresses who wanted to be part of the story, not rewrite it mid-sentence. If Rachel wants to win them back, she's going to need to stop defending the castle and start acting like someone who misses the magic too. Maybe she doesn't need to be Snow White anymore, but if she ever wants to be more than a headline or a parody, she has to prove that she understands why that role mattered in the first place, because in the end, that's what it all comes down to, why it mattered. Snow White wasn't just a cartoon. It wasn't just a princess. It was a memory, a moment, a spark, a story that taught generations how to dream, how to hope, how to believe in something bigger than themselves. And when you take a story like that and try to repackage it without reverence, when you treat nostalgia like a problem to be solved instead of a treasure to be honored, people notice. And they push back. Not because they're scared of change, but because they feel like something sacred is being turned into content. The Simpsons didn't cause this backlash, they just held up the mirror. And Rachel Zegler, she's not doomed. She's not canceled, but she is at a crossroads. One path leads to deeper silence, to more damage control, to an industry that quietly forgets her name. The other, it starts with a simple thing: humility, humor. A moment where she drops the defensiveness, embraces the fallout, and finds her way back to the people who once wanted her to win. Hollywood's filled with redemption arcs, but the best ones always start with a little self-awareness. So, what do you think? Did The Simpsons go too far, or did they just say what everyone else was thinking out loud? Is Rachel Zegler facing unfair heat, or is this the ripple effect of months of missteps finally catching up? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments. Tap like if you think Hollywood needs more honesty and less PR spin, and hit subscribe for more no-fluff breakdowns of the moments that matter. And when you're ready to hear what really went down behind the next viral storm, the next video is waiting for you.